Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, the voice of bodybuilding. And today I have a returning guest. The one and only Tony Huge is joining me. You need to look on the YouTube. He's doing a flex. Thank you, Tony, for joining me.
All right. Good to see you again.
Yeah, for
Yep. You're
sure.
in London, though. You're not in Thailand anymore.
I know. It was like we were so close to meeting in person, weren't we?
Yeah. Yeah. But you'll come back again someday, right?
If we do come back, because of obviously what happened with the pollution, I've spoken to you a bit about that with Matt,
Mm,
knock-on effect he had there with his health. We said
mm,
like if we went back and had a vacation, it would probably be okay, you know?
yeah. Which the pollution got him in which city?
Chiang Mai.
And it was from burning crops or what?
Yeah, that's what we sort of
Mm,
he went to the hospital, spoke to some specialists and things, and that's sort of where we directed as to what had happened over the
mm,
time of the burning season.
mm.
Mm.
Just to put steroid side effects relative to other harmful things in our environment,
Mm.
it's much more harmful to burn, you know, things in the atmosphere to breathe, like things that are burning or chemicals, than it is steroid side effects. And yet, so many places in the world, they just burn their trash or they burn the crops or they don't have catalytic converters on their exhaust or their cars and they have industrial chemicals and people are breathing all this chemicals, and that is much more harmful to the health than any responsible use of performance enhancing drugs. I was in India and I gave a seminar about that, but everybody looked at me so confused. They're like, what do you mean our air and water is dirty? That's all they ever known.
Yeah, this is what we sort of, I guess, found out when we were there. It was like it's quite normal for the people in Chiang Mai to experience what was happening,
Hmm.
but for us, it was like, what I mean, we felt like we were in a Netflix series. It was like this can't be real, you know?
Hmm. The air can be so bad. Yeah.
For sure. And obviously there you've touched on sort of steroid use and that is, of course, becoming Tony Huge in the bodybuilding space. You are one of the most well-known OGs in the
Mm. Yeah.
bodybuilding world. And in this episode, we're going to talk about where that sort of started, where it came from, and potentially, the highs and the lows of that journey, because being in
Mm.
the public eye, as it were, it's maybe not as highlight reel as people would think. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I was just at a girl's condo that nobody knows where she lives. Nobody knows I'm even seeing her. And I just keep one very private like that because it's a nice feeling to have anonymity and to have privacy and to not have, be disturbed or distracted from what I'm focusing on.
Mm.
But when you get famous, everywhere you go, people recognize you. You don't have as much privacy. If you do something bad in public, people are going to talk about it. So you got to really be careful and, more conscientious about what you're doing because you're being watched and, any mistake you made is going to become a video that people react to. So yeah, there's drawback, but there's benefits, free gym memberships, free food, free travel, things like that. I don't have that stuff as much anymore, but at the peak when I was trending, yeah, I had all the celebrity perks.
Do you feel like reflecting now that it could have gone that bit? Like, was it something you were like, it's blowing up and people are understanding who I am, or did it like happen and you're like, holy shit, everyone knows who I am?
There's certain moments of that, like, the first time I went to a bodybuilding expo, while being famous, and all of a sudden everybody there knows me, or going into a new gym in a different country and everybody in the gym knows me, stuff like that. Yeah, that was shocking. But you only get shocked a couple times and then it becomes normal.
And you were around the era of Rich Piana as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yep, like many other influencers at the time, was planning a lot of collaborations with Rich, became acquaintances, not close friends with Rich, but was planning on collaborating together and hung out together a couple times. He was part of my inspiration. Before me, there was, as far as people that reached a large audience openly using steroids, there was a few guys before, but it never really got into the mainstream or got a lot of views. And then Boston Lloyd got a lot of views on it, and then Rich Piana was doing it at the time, but he wasn't showing like his life, right? He was just talking about it. Boston Lloyd was actually showing his usage and his lifestyle around steroids. So yeah, those were two of my inspiring avatars. But I came in with a completely different angle because I was like a businessman lawyer. So I figured Rich Piana gave steroids style and lifestyle. Boston Lloyd made it appealing to like the young, reckless crowd, to like whatever it takes. I think Boston Lloyd didn't use that phrase so much, but that was kind of how he lived. And then you had Rich Piana, that whatever it takes. And then there was Tony Huge, which was more like, let's figure out a responsible model for pushing the chemistry to the limit, but still using like logic and being rational and having a healthy strategy to it. Yeah.
Yeah, because of course, when people look on YouTube, Instagram, whatever it is, there's always going to be opinions formed. So when I look at something, when you look at something, we're going to have different thought processes associated with that content. And for sure, that comes with when you're talking about something like steroid use, that's going to come with people saying you shouldn't be talking about it, the dosages are too high, all of these things. How do you find that you've, I guess, I don't know if coped's the right word, but when you do get this negative thought process come your way, have you got certain things you're like, this helps me deal with it, or do you just keep going and stay true to yourself?
Now I realize that there's different levels to the game at any game that we play in life. And I achieved a really high level at early ages, and I achieved high level of knowledge about bodybuilding and biohacking, even despite not being a competition bodybuilder or like a well-known coach at the time. But I was doing two things. I was trying to sensationalize performance enhancing drugs in order to shock the general public into changing their perspective on performance enhancing drugs. And that came with a lot of criticism and a lot of negativity because I'm challenging people's belief system about performance enhancing chemistry. And then I'm talking about advanced usage of performance enhancing chemistry, which then is beyond the comprehension of the mainstream public or even a lot of competition bodybuilders who followed cycles and protocols from the 1980s and didn't think it could get any better or should change because what works already has been working and you just do what the pros do. So yeah, I got a lot of hate and criticism from both angles, but I understood what it was. And I understood that every criticism I got was an opportunity to show people a different way. If I was just speaking to the public and getting them to agree with everything I said, they just agree. I mean, that wouldn't be much of a challenge, right? I wanted to take the challenging perspective shifts. I wanted to rock people's world, and people like me who thought that drugs were bad, just drugs are bad. That was the dogmatic approach I had. And then I had some epiphanies that rocked my world. And now I say drugs are good, or drugs are just tools, could be good or bad. So I want to give that same epiphany to people without having to wait so long in their life to realize it. Because eventually everybody's either going to die or embrace chemistry that allows them not to die or live longer or get through a disease or reach a goal or whatever. So eventually everybody's going to agree with me that performance enhancing chemistry could and should be used for improving any human attribute. And then there's levels to the game. So besides shocking people and getting hate for shocking people, which is to be expected, like I said, and embraced, then talking advanced to people, now I realize there's just different levels to the game. If someone thinks that something I'm saying is negative or disagrees with it, they just don't realize it yet. Another few years down the road, a decade down the road, what I'm saying is completely logical, completely rational, completely built in reality. And most people are living in a fantasy world, or most people are playing a game at level 1 and they just haven't realized, what the language and the perspective of a level 10 player is. And eventually they will. And so those people that hate on me now, 10 years from now will be like, oh, now I understand what Tony Huge was saying. So I'm trying to improve. I'm going to try to improve my message so that people understand that if they don't understand what I'm saying or don't believe something I say or think something I say is just completely wrong, if I can explain it in a way that I say, okay, just if you think something I say is wrong, instead of letting your limiting beliefs cut you off from learning, How about just reserve that, set it aside and say, okay, I agree with this much Tony said. The rest I don't know, but let's check back in 5 years. Don't cut it off and say I'm wrong and this just doesn't make sense, whatever. Because I have a track record of being right in the past almost every time. 100 times I've said this is how the chemistry works. And 100 times, overwhelmingly, 90% of the audience will say, no, you're wrong. This is how it is. And then 5 years later, now everybody agrees with me. So I'm just ahead of my time, like saying the world is round and everybody else is still saying it's flat. And it's like, I know eventually they're going to realize the world is round. If it takes them 10 years to realize it, then I don't think I did a great job explaining it to them. I'm hoping to shortcut that for them. But in the end, it's not like I feel competitive with them or combative with them. I just feel like they're children who haven't grown up yet. The audience that criticize me.
Yeah, I mean, as well, a good example of what you're explaining there, we spoke about this in the last episode we did together, TRT. So a lot of people may see you talk about TRT and think, oh my God, it's this negative thing. And then they go to the GP and they then go on a course of TRT and they realize how much better they feel. And it's like, who's telling you the information that can have a huge impact? And we spoke about the difference in something like the TRT model, how people are in this crazy depression, the effects of, and then going into TRT, it's like, whoa, I've been level 1 living, like you describe, up to level 10. And that's not saying running all these different compounds. That could be for a normal person in the general population to enhance their life. So there is certainly so many conflicting ways about who's actually telling you the information as well, and what the person is assuming before you actually even say what you're going to say.
Yeah, it's people trust doctors and the system is set up to trust doctors. And I think if you expect average performance out of life, then doctors can get you from disease to average. But if you want to go from average to superhuman, not only do doctors not undergo training for that, don't understand it, and are not interested in it, but are actually discouraged from it. Doctors are not supposed to be helping humans become superhuman, because that is not how the FDA was set up. That is not an approved, becoming superhuman by any attribute is not an approved use for drugs. So they can't get FDA approval for that. So pretty much you can't legally sell a product in the US that is to make you superhuman that has FDA approval, because there is no FDA approval for products that make you superhuman. So then we're stuck with research chemicals to become superhuman, or off-label use of pharmaceuticals. But the doctors write prescriptions for pharmaceuticals to take you from disease to average, but they can't, or they're not supposed to, at least, write you prescriptions to go from average to superhuman. It's not the way the system works. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it is always, as well, it's something I talk to my clients about. When you go to a GP, they're a general practitioner, so they have a general knowledge of many, many things, but that's why you get referred to specialists, or you go down different routes. And sometimes it can be quite hard when speaking to anyone, like even talking to my mum, like she's been grown up with the GP as being, you go to the GP and they tell you what to do it. But we've explored certain things with her own depression, which relates into, what you can do through supplements. You obviously use peptides, etc. as well, and actually feeling better through that rather than so much medication as well. So it is for sure a tricky one, because we are brought into the world with the GPs being where we would go if we're unwell or something is wrong.
Yeah, I saw my family members died from mainstream diseases that the mainstream has pharmaceuticals for that don't work very well. They treat the symptoms, they don't cure the disease. And because I witnessed that, I witnessed the suffering and death of so many family members from various different diseases, different types of cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's. And these are all totally curable diseases with research chemicals. So I didn't know that until afterwards. And then I have clients, and I'm actually treating clients for similar diseases that my family had. And I know that I could have saved my family members, but I didn't, because at the time I knew of alternative medicine. I did, but I didn't understand how extremely more effective alternative medicine was than mainstream medicine at curing diseases, not at treating symptoms. Sure, the symptoms are treated very well by mainstream pharmaceuticals. Yeah, so that's part of my motivation also, is I don't like to see people put their faith and their trust into something like the government or mainstream medicine just to be led down a path to the slaughterhouse. To me, it's like a really pretty sanitary way of sort of looking at like a Nazi concentration camp. Like I think of like the worst case scenario of humanity, and someone's being told, oh yeah, you come to this camp, we're going to do this, but instead you get led down into the gas chamber and killed, and your body thrown in a ditch and burned. And these people, I mean, I'm sure that they were tricked into it. They thought everybody else is lining up, walking into these things. And I just think of like that same imagery in my head when I think of Western medicine. It's like people are trusting this authority. They're walking down the line to their own slaughter. And I just think it's so unfair and it's so unjust. But another part of it is this happens to poor people a lot, but the super rich people, they know better. They have connections. They're going to be able to talk to the doctor, and the doctor's going to say, yeah, I'm supposed to give you this, but hey, I can tell you, actually, don't take this, take this. Doctors talk very differently to their friends than they do their patients, because to their friends, they can actually say, yeah, actually, Western medicine doesn't work so well. Alternative medicine works better, but they can never say that to the public. They'll lose their license.
Yeah, it's a really tricky scenario, and it's obviously different in different countries. Obviously, Thailand's going to be different to America different to the UK, and a lot of
it's all different, but American pharmaceutical companies control a lot of the world. So the foundation of Western medicine is being pushed very hard on all these other countries, and influencing other countries' medicine and regulation and rules significantly. America and China do this through the World Health Organization, National Health Institute, these larger government acronym organizations, and then those push it and force it on the other countries. Like even Thailand may not want to, but has to, because of the political pressure, the military pressure, the financial pressure. And so in the end, these pharmaceutical companies end up controlling, a large percentage of the world. And then maybe they make a fundamental change to the way regulations are constructed in all these different countries. And then, yeah, there's a lot of changes on top of it, but the fundamental system is still built to make the profit for not just pharmaceutical companies, but other monopolized medical businesses around like hospitals and hospital medical technology, and the way that hospitals use insurance. And like, it's all just a big system to make money. The main thing is there's nothing sacred about it. It's not actually built with the intent for the benefit of humanity or the benefit of the patient or people's well-being. That's almost coincidental. It's all a profit center. And so it just leaves it up to the patient and the individual. You have to make your own decisions. Otherwise, you're making decisions that mostly benefit the profit of the medical machine.
Yeah, it is. It's unfortunate when you actually break it down and look at it. But again, back to the opinions, right? Everyone has their own belief system, which is what you said, you sort of try and break down in people. But that can be so solidified from childhood or early adulthood and all those periods of time where I feel like it's important. And this is why I like talking like this with guests. It's like opening the peripheral a little bit to what your limiting beliefs maybe are and where they came from. And that is what you do, right? You have been known for these outrageous things, the outrageous YouTube videos. The one that you did where you were like, I'm dead, but I'm not dead. Things attention, isn't it? And it's like maybe that opens someone up with a bit of humor as well, and then they think, oh, I might watch a bit of this.
I would love to keep doing that sensational content, but boy, that's what gets censored. Yeah, that was one of the DMP Diaries episode. That one went super viral because for the first 20 seconds of the video, I just laid on the floor like I'm dead. And then I jumped up and I said, day 4 of DNP, and I'm still not dead yet, because all the comments overwhelmingly said I'm gonna die.
Mm.
And this is another case where everybody is wrong and I'm right. I said, I'm not going to die. I understand how the drug works. I understand how to use it properly and safely. And I'm willing to take the risk to prove it to everybody. And I did. I did that cycle. I did many other cycles. I started helping other people with their cycles, and nobody died. I mean, the only people that died from it under that I know about it during the time I was teaching about it were people that intentionally wanted to end their life, because there are people that did end their life with it intentionally. Yeah.
Mm.
Knowing that they could if they took a high enough dosage.
It's wild, isn't it? I mean, as well,
Yeah.
there is deaths in the bodybuilding world. Maybe some bodybuilders don't really realize actually how high the death rate can be across the world of
Mm.
bodybuilding, but you don't know what that individual's going through. So you've sort of touched on there, haven't you, that someone wanted to intentionally end their life. And it's like, again, you can't cast opinions. You know, you see it, there's posts put out, this bodybuilder died from using too many steroids, but that's still a person, right?
Yeah, so I still don't know anybody who's died from steroids. Just people who died from, cardiovascular events, from having too much body size, or, something maybe contributed to by, not even by insulin, but like insulin as a contributing factor.
Yeah.
Usually it's the strain on the heart of the body size combined with recreational drugs. And that's not bodybuilding drugs. Those are not performance enhancing drugs. But because of the increased body size and stress on the heart, it's a contributing factor, sure, but not a cause of death to take steroids.
Hmm. You said
Mm.
about recreational there. That is something again that is very well used in the bodybuilding space. Even like
Mm.
micro dosing things like mushrooms or ketamine. I think it used to be like you don't use recreational drugs, do you? And now it's a bit more open to, because with bodybuilders, right, we're in this realm of every single day we're doing the same thing, and through preps, through off season, sometimes the recreational side of things allows a bit of free space in the mind.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a couple different types of bodybuilders.
Mm.
There's the type that live super clean and they just will not take any recreational drugs. They will go to bed on a certain time. They don't miss their 6 meals. Those turn out to usually be successful bodybuilders, but still have to have some level of genetics.
Mhm.
And then there's the bodybuilder that loves the high of bodybuilding, the experience, the lifestyle. They want to get the muscle, they want to use the muscle in social settings. They like the pleasure that revolves around the muscle, and they'll take other substances to amplify pleasure. And yeah, I think I used to be the clean bodybuilder, and now I'm the hedonistic chemical using bodybuilder.
Now, would you talk about what your stack is at the moment? Is that something you would share?
Yeah, well, this is funny because right here I have 3AD. This is a pro hormone by Enhanced.
Okay.
And right now, this is my source of testosterone. So I did blood tests yesterday. I did 4 blood tests. And I'm going to do one more blood test today. And we're going to see how many milligrams of 3AD converts to how much testosterone in the body. Because this pro hormone is anabolic and it converts to testosterone. So instead of lowering testosterone, like people worry about SARMs or other things are suppressive, it actually causes your body to naturally produce more testosterone, a prohormone that results in more testosterone. So the theory is, and what I didn't test before is, can this be our PCT? So we come off cycle and we just take 3AD and we can just maintain natural testosterone levels immediately with no downtime, with no suppression, like bridging between cycles. Because I'm on testosterone injections, but if I can just take the 3AD pill and not have to inject testosterone anymore, and then I can just add anabolics on top of it, like if I want to take D-ball pre-workout, I can take SARM pre-workout, AC262, RAD 140, something like this, then how much easier is life going to be? And I can just travel with some pills,
Yeah.
SARMs, and 380. And so I think we're pretty close to figuring out at what dosage I can actually replace testosterone with this.
So enhanced, what's the relationship there with you and them guys?
Enhanced has the exclusive use of the patent with 380.
Okay.
So Enhanced is the only company that can carry the product.
How did that come about?
This pro hormone was with a couple other companies similar to Enhanced but those companies didn't perform very well. Not just as far as selling this product, but just as a business. Owners of those businesses didn't know how to properly like run a business for the long term, like a quality business with quality products with recurring customers. Like they didn't have that part of it. They were just trying to hit it hard with, you know, innovative products and go big, and it just kind of collapsed. So then my previous CEO then made an agreement with them, and this was a while ago, but we never really gave it the attention that it deserved, because I mean, we used it in experiments and we noticed that there's definitely some progress with it, but we also noticed that taking the SARMS resulted in more muscle than 3AD. But what we didn't realize until we started doing more and more lab tests on its effect on testosterone, that testosterone levels are going up and up and up with its use, not down and down and down, which means that it could be stacked with the SARMs. It could be a testosterone foundation. It could be a replacement for TRT. It could be considered a testosterone booster and a SARM all in one. So then we realize, this deserves more attention. But the people who buy it, they buy it every month. They just, but there's not a lot of new people buying because they just don't know about it. It's like the most undiscovered secret in bodybuilding supplementation right now, because there's nothing else on the mainstream market that does that actually increases testosterone and it's anabolic and has no blood work side effects.
You heard it here first, guys. Suddenly
Yeah.
the sales.
Yeah. So because you asked me what's my cycle. So
Yeah.
before this, I was taking about, let's say, 300 milligrams of testosterone per week. And then I use a SARM before my workout. Maybe I take MK677. I took MK677 today. That's why I'm a little bit hungry. I just realized. Yeah, I get really hungry on it. And I just use a little bit of insulin and growth hormone if I want to just fill out really quickly. But I'm just maintaining. I'm not trying to grow, or I'm just maintaining my foundation, and then I'll do a burst when I want to grow really fast, like put on 10 pounds in 1 week and then just cruise again.
Yeah. And do you feel comfortable in your physique at the moment? Do you feel happy with where your physique's at?
Yeah, I feel good about it, but the girlfriends, they, you know, when they when they met me, I was bigger, and they say they want me bigger and harder, and they want my abs more defined, and they want my butt bigger, and they want my shoulders bigger. And it's funny because the audience, they say, "Oh, you have all these girlfriends. It's only about money." And I can assure you that if I lose my physique, the girls will be a lot less interested in me. Like they signed up for and they want me to have a great physique. And I mean, I have a good physique, but their standard for my physique is high because, you know, when I first met them, I was working out more, and now I work out a lot less. Now I work out, you know, maybe like 3 days a week, but only two of those are kind of like 2 times per week hard and one time just kind of for health. And if I go again, it's because I'm trying to get the girls to go to the gym, not really for myself, or I'm working on my phone the whole time. But I maintain my body fat at like maybe 7%, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. You got to check out the YouTube here, guys. We're seeing Tony Huge
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, so I showed my abs. There's no body fat. I have the serratus showing and the obliques and abs, and so actually I probably undereat, and I could be a lot bigger, because if my body fat is, you know, less, like 8%, let's say. So if my body fat's like 8%, then obviously I'm undereating, because if I ate a little bit more, I could be at 10%, but I also have a lot more muscle. So I'm erring on the side of under eating because I just staying lean. But the girls want me bigger. They want the muscles harder and bigger.
Yeah.
But I'll get on trend again in the
Oh,
near future. It's just that I don't want to do it unless my relationship life is 100% stable, because I will ruin all my relationships unless, you know, the environment is totally stable. So as soon as everything's totally stable, then I will do a little bit of trend, which will give me the hardness and the definition. And then I just come off the trend and just kind of maintain that look.
for sure. You can. This is where you say you can play with the chemistry. I guess for you as well, it's like you're at a point in your life where you can ebb and flow it. You can use different compounds. You can use different SARMs to get the desired effects. You know enough about it, rather than like I'll use tren or whatever it may be for a competition prep or for an
Hmm.
off season. So I guess it's quite a cool spot for you to be in, where you know, well, I'm just one exposure away from X result, you know?
Yeah, that's the good feeling, to have power over your biology.
Yeah.
Because you know, you think back as a young, I don't know, for women, if there's like a time when you really struggled and then now it's easier for you because of your experience and you know what to do also. But like as a man, it's the big struggle is when you're young and your metabolism is fast. And it's if you have a fast metabolism and you're like 18, and that's when you want the most amount of muscle, but it's so hard to put on muscle when the metabolism is so fast. So yeah, then I feel like back then I didn't have as much control over my physique. I felt like every time I didn't eat enough food or didn't train hard enough, I would shrink to nothing, no matter how hard I worked in the past. So my body felt like a liability. Now it feels like an asset because I can manipulate my body and make it look or feel however I want in a very short period of time. And that feels really good. I mean, I guess we're all trying to control our environment, you know, internal, external, our bodies, our surroundings, and being able to take control of my physical form. That I feel like that's a high level of success in the human experience.
Yeah, for sure. And this is the thing as well with a lot of people that do have steroid use, even if they come down to TRT or maybe just do less experimentation, as it were, that there is that muscle built from the use. And, you know, generally speaking, that's not going anywhere as long as it's stimulated and the test levels are there, you eat enough, etc., etc. So for sure, I feel like there is this element of, and even for myself, like you say about females, pushing up in a growth phase, I look very, very different from a very low dose of PEDs, but I look so different to when I was natural. And for myself, I feel such a benefit from that. I feel so much better in a growth phase than I would have before. So mentally, it changed the game for me 100%, you know, and I'm not running a load of gear, but big difference for me.
Did you have a time back when you were natural when it was just really hard to change your physique? Because yeah,
And I found that in my growth phases, of course, we're told you need to put on body fat when you are gaining muscle. And to a certain degree, of course, there's merit to that. However, I just felt at the end of an off season, and I'm happy to say it, I just felt fat, right? Like I didn't
Mm.
feel good at all. So I hated doing the growth phases. But of course, if you're competing, you need to grow to improve your physique. And it was just this mindset fuckery for me. I just didn't feel good with it. And now using PEDs and then also the performance benefits, I find like I feel more like an athlete. Does that make sense? Like I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, you just feel different, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Mm.
what's your strategy right now? What are you working on right now? Maintaining, losing fat, building muscle, what?
Well, it's a little bit in limbo, as it were, because I had the knee surgery when I was in Thailand. So that's like 15 weeks ago. I've got like one soggy quad and one normal quad. So I'm very much focused on the rehab, but I really want to bring up my delts and my upper back just for my own personal
Mm.
thing. So I'm focusing now. I can stabilize through my knee, sort of a growth phase on my upper portion, and then the rehab on the lower. So it's very much like a very slight surplus from my food.
Mm.
And just I feel like a bit like yourself, where it's like to enjoy life, you know, like rather than a competition being on X date, it's like quite like this. It's quite good, you know, training and living like a bodybuilder.
You have really amazing gyms there, right?
Yeah. I've got a really
Yeah.
good gym. Like, honestly, so good. But even in Thailand, I found that we found some really good gyms.
Hmm. Yeah, but I don't know. Dubai
Mm.
has the really amazing gyms. England, I saw a couple amazing gyms, and America has some really amazing gyms. Thailand, the feeling in the gym, like the vibe is amazing.
It's different.
Uh, yeah, but you know, because it's very hot, not a lot of the gyms are air conditioned,
Mm.
and but there's, you know, to me the most important elements is it have a good vibe, is it inspirational, and I don't like a lot of rules. And luckily in Thailand, people bother you less about like, don't take pictures or this or that. Like in America, there's so many rules in the gym. I feel like it's more like a prison, but in Thailand, I feel more freedom. You know, in England, what is it like? They give you some freedom, or they're like really strict rules also? Can
I
you take your
feel
shirt
like,
off and take a couple pictures and put your shirt on, or are they going to come yell at you and threaten to kick you out?
well, it's so funny you say that. Literally yesterday we were at the gym and Matt's actually working there as a PT now. And I'd done my training and we were in the sort of reception area. And there was these two guys and I didn't realize they do OnlyFans for like the gay community, etc. And they had their tops off and they were putting oil on and they were doing pull-ups together. They were hugging, they were videoing it all. And I was like, oh, so it's funny you say that because
Yeah.
yeah, it seems to be fine in that gym. However, if it's like a
Yeah.
leisure centre gym where there's maybe children and older people, maybe
Mm.
sometimes I think it's a bit more restricted.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So we like the hardcore gyms then with more freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is as well, right? In a physique-based lifestyle, we're celebrating what we look like, right? Ideally. So then if you're not allowed to, it's like, oh, okay, you know.
Yeah, actually, a big factor in the quality of my physique is how many mirrors I have. The more mirrors I have up, by far, the better my physique. Because I see my body more often, and it reminds me, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't eat as much chocolate, or maybe I should go to the gym today. But I don't have enough mirrors in this house. Like I was thinking, probably like instead of more steroids or even going to the gym more, like the fundamental change that would keep me in better shape, I probably just need to put up more mirrors.
Hey, that's a pretty. I've never ever
Mm.
thought of that because normally people are like don't want to see the mirrors, but I've picked this up in the last episode we did. You're consciously wanting to look good for yourself, but also the girls as well. Like that is something you think about, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like I have, yeah, some of my girlfriends are really young, and for them especially, like I have to look younger. I have to be in really good shape. A lot these younger girls are very hypergamistic. Like if I go somewhere with them and they see a guy that looks like he has more money or looks like he has more muscle or whatever, like some of my girlfriends are like really, they're really drawn to it. And that's good. That's normal. That's natural. I want them to be honest about it. I'm looking at other girls too, and we're bringing other girls home with us and stuff, right? But I have to maintain like a lot of attraction for me and, you know, like the peacock, because I know that society and the culture is always challenging, and men are constantly trying to take the women away and saying, "Oh, why are you with him? Because he has multiple girls. If you're with me, I'll treat you like a princess. I'll take better care of you." Blah blah blah. All this stuff. So it's like I have to compete with all of that also. So I have to be younger looking. I have to be stronger. I have to be successful. Otherwise, I'll lose them. Like it's not just about money. Money is a factor, but it's like my physique. It really makes a difference to them. And not just keeping them, but also in the bedroom. Like I noticed that the better my physique is, the better time the girls have significantly. And I don't know, I think this is where I get confused, because when I see in public, I see, and it seems like girls are want to say or that they're not as interested in a man's physique,
Yeah.
but then in the bedroom, I see it makes a huge difference. Like when they feel my body, or they feel that if they feel something that's hard, they get excited. If they feel like soft parts and whatever, I know that I see they're less excited. Maybe other people aren't picking up on it. Maybe that's just my belief system creating that reality. I don't know. But when I have a better physique, my sex life is way better. My girlfriends are more loyal and more attracted to me. And so I have a lot of motivation. And yet I still don't do it
Mm.
because I'm actually just waiting for the trend. I'm just honestly, I'm just waiting. Like I'm like, I'll get my good physique when I can use the not that I would need it, but it's just so easy with trend. With the SARMs, I could also get there, but I have to train a little bit harder. I have to eat a little bit better. But with the trend, I don't have to do anything but take trend, you know.
Now, maybe we could talk a bit about where because obviously you were brought up in America and now you're in Thailand. We did touch on it a little bit when we've spoken before about your sort of vision and the harem you're building. Where did that come from? Like from being an American to being in Thailand?
Well, the harem, I started trying to build a harem in America,
Oh,
and I think I could have done it. I mean, Americans comment on my videos and say it's impossible. You could never do it in a Western country. But actually, a lot of my friends here in Thailand, they said, "Oh, you're in the wrong country for a harem. You should do that in America." Western women are open-minded. You know, you got Dan Bilzerian, you got the Playboy Mansion, you got these, influences that make it, somewhat cool for depending on, and then you got the hippies, the hippie type girls that kind of like that, or they're like swinger type people. They all understand all this, and that's becoming normal amongst the older crowd, becoming swingers. I think I could have done it in the US. I was just so busy, as a lawyer,
mm,
when I didn't have time to nurture it, and I didn't have the skills. And if I went back, I think I could probably do it there. Or I could probably do it in most countries. But yeah, anyways, I think it fits good for here too, because especially as far as the cost of it, like when I take all the girls out to dinner here, it might cost like $50. But if I take all the girls out in America for the same dinner, it's going to be like $200. So, and when you amplify the cost of things by four people that go out to dinner or something like that, plus things are four times as expensive in America, then it gets really expensive. Like, I think the pleasure from the harem is probably not worth the cost in America, not because of paying the women, but because you take the women jet skiing. Now all three women have to go jet skiing. You take them to dinner. Now three women. You take them to drinks. Three women, not just one woman, but paying for three women at once. Then it gets very, very expensive. So the harem did kind of start in the US. It's just here I perfected it. And then the reason I moved to Asia, there was so many reasons, but one is I felt like a big fish in a small pond in America and Sacramento.
mhm,
Two is that Sacramento was a terrible place for dating. Just people in Sacramento just generally don't care about their health or productivity so much. Everybody's just kind of in a slow grind with no bigger purpose in their life and nothing really interesting going on, no innovation, not a very high level of consciousness, kind of a lot of negativity. And this is all perpetuated by the government and the media and the culture. Like, it's the people are just following what they're told, basically. And most of the people in Sacramento, they've never been out of Sacramento, or they've never been out of California or whatever. So they're just very close-minded to other perspectives. And I have a very worldly perspective, so I just kind of out of place in a small community. And then I felt like being wealthy in America didn't really feel like being wealthy, because when I, as a lawyer, realized that you're kind of just borrowing Western money. It just doesn't really belong to you, and the government just takes it whenever they want. Most people don't know about this or hear about this because they never push the boundaries of the matrix. But as soon as you push the boundaries, all your accounts get frozen. They take all your money. They use it against you. So better to be wealthy outside America than you actually have, like, you actually own the money instead of borrowing it from the government that they take it back. And having children also in America, I think, is not optimal, because the government wants to try to control the children, control the education, force vaccines, and force, perspective and mindset that I don't agree with on the children. So in Thailand, I can control that more. And I also thought the Thai culture, or Asian culture in general, was more nurturing for children. I don't believe that as much anymore as I used to. I think probably Latin America may have been better for more nurturing for the children, but I think Asia's okay. But it's just not as significantly better as far as nurturing the children than America than I thought. So yeah, there's just a lot of things. Some of, like, grass is always greener, just like I already did everything I could do in America. So this is a new adventure. It seems more exciting to me as well. Also, yeah, the challenge, like in America, I feel like I understand how everything works. It's like I can see the matrix. I know how to do everything, and it's not so much a challenge. But then coming to another country where it's a different language, a different culture, different connections, like, it's a totally different game, and it's really stimulating to try to beat this game too, to try to thrive. I know how to thrive in America. Like, I traveled around the world and I tried to play this game like, how could I thrive in Dubai? How could I thrive in Asia? How could I thrive in South America? What were the connections I have to make? What would be the source of money? What would be like the landmines to avoid? So I like playing that game. Still playing that in Thailand. I still haven't mastered everything, but I've come a long way.
Yeah, yeah. I found that like the different environment, you've got to be of a growth mindset to move country, right? Because it is, like you say, when it's a completely different language. And I found it's like you're literally, we packed up our stuff and we just went with suitcases and we're like, okay, we're just starting here. Like we don't know anything. And then it was like,
Wow.
and it was super cool, actually. And we've spoken about environment before. Like, I feel like I'm living in a completely different frequency, even coming back to the UK from that such a big change in environment. Like, it's like I'm a new person, like almost like a better version of what I was, if you know what I mean.
I think when you travel, you start to understand, if you're mindful about it, you start to understand who you are versus what amount of you is a product of your environment, because you change the environment and you say, okay, what's constant? Like, who am I versus what does this environment change about me? And if you travel all around the world, then you realize, okay, I'm this, but the environmental influences on me were that. And so then you get to know who you really are. But if you just stay in one environment, how do you ever know who you really are versus what a product of the environment you are?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. It's super cool. Now, how do you, with the girls obviously being Thai, do you speak Thai?
I don't speak Thai. But Nita, my girlfriend of a year and a half, her English was like 50%, and now it's like 70%.
Okay.
So it's improved a lot by talking with me, and I need to get her a tutor so she can learn 100%. And then Pau speaks like 80%, and she translates for the other girls. So when we have new girlfriends, they don't speak any English, then Pau translates everything. And luckily, since Pau knows me so well and I've already explained everything to her, she can actually teach new girls about me without me having to spend so much time teaching them. So I get to skip the first 20 hours of having to teach a girl about me,
Yeah.
and she does that for me. And then to learn about the girls, because I'm a man and, men don't understand women as well as women do. She's able to talk to the women for like 10 hours and summarize that down and tell me within 1 hour, like 10 hours worth of. So I save basically 30, 29, 20. I save like from the first 30 hours of a relationship. Really, I only spend like 3 hours.
Mm, That's
Yeah.
pretty cool, isn't it? How
Yeah.
do you have like a vision right now with where you want to head with the girlfriends and what's happening there to get that stabilized environment as much as possible, or is it sort of a work in progress?
Originally, it was which girls can I combine to be compatible with each other.
Mm,
Um, but it seems like Pau is compatible with everybody. And it seems like Nita is compatible with almost nobody except for baby mama too. So I think with Pau and Jenny, I can have any other girls with them and they're going to be compatible. But with Nita, Foxy, I think she just operates at a lower level of consciousness and she doesn't really want to operate at a higher level of consciousness. She's kind of stuck at her pride and her ego, and she doesn't really kind of raise to the level of like full acceptance or love. She's a little bit selfish about her own feelings. She doesn't care about the other girl's feelings so much, other than to try to look like a good person. She's just operating at a lower frequency. But the sex is amazing with her. She's a hard worker. She's like very loyal, and she's very passionate. So like there's all these positives. So yeah, the problem is I probably should not be with her because she ruins the whole harem dynamic. And so I just keep trying to biohack her harder. I keep trying to open up her mind and raise her consciousness, even almost against her, against, she's trying. She's trying to sabotage everything. And I'm trying to use biohacking, but she's not really like fully willing to love and accept everybody else. So it's a huge challenge. And all my friends tell me that's like, just get rid of any girl that doesn't accept this situation. But I say, no, if they say they want to accept the situation, then we'll work on the chemistry and try it. And it'll be an experiment, because these women have, with the biohacking brain chemistry, completely upgraded their intelligence, their problem solving ability, their communication ability. Like, it's really amazing what the brain chemistry can do. It's like, can I get someone who's not interested in raising their consciousness through chemistry to want to raise their consciousness? Yeah, DMT was probably the most helpful tool for this, because DMT allows someone to feel a high level of consciousness, and then at least they, like, it's like training wheels, at least they can choose whether they want to have that feeling anymore or not naturally.
Talk to me about DMT. I've been told about this by a few people that you need to try this, and I'm like, I don't know about that. It sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, it's if you take a high dosage, right, you go blast it into outer space and you lose sense of reality and you go somewhere, spiritually, mentally. But a lower dosage can just put you into like a meditative state. You're still totally what, you can look around, you're just totally normal. It's just like you feel like you just meditated for an hour, but you get it instantly.
Yeah.
And it's relaxing, it's peaceful, you feel at peace with yourself, you feel like I don't need anything because I am enough, that type of feeling, like self-love. So for someone who's not capable or has some mental blocks in feeling that feeling, I think it's really helpful for them to feel that.
Mm.
And like one of the girls that did it, who was part of the harem, like she did it and then she was crying. And the reason why she's crying is because, like, on the DMT, she felt what it feels like to love herself again, but like she blocked herself from loving herself because of some trauma. She trusted her friend, and her friend betrayed her, female friend, like, and that betrayed her. And then she can't trust. And then, I don't know, she has love problems with herself. So, anyways, the DMT showed her like how to love again. Yeah. And it's only 15 minutes, but then it just gives you 15 minutes of a new perspective that you can tap into later. Like, if the girl's smart, mindful, she can think back to like, I did feel self-love. I can feel self-love. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you haven't experienced it, I talk about this like a prep, when you're like digging yourself to stage condition and you're pushing and pushing and pushing, you sort of forget what it feels like to feel normal, but also being kind to yourself, because you have this goal of like, I've got to get shredded for stage. And then it's like, what does that even look like? Self-care and beyond the cucumbers and face masks, of course.
Yeah.
Self-care,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's like, how do you, as a male, what would you say you do to sort of give back to yourself, as it were, to give that self-care back?
I like going to the sauna and the steam room and the cold plunge, these type of things, and massage. Yeah, and the gym is always good and always healthy. But something I don't do that I probably should do is like go sit on the beach and meditate, like at sunset or sunrise. I mean, I'm looking at the ocean. I live right on the ocean. So I could just walk out there and sit under a palm tree, and I don't do that, but I really should. So yeah, if I spent more time on myself, probably the next thing I would do is add like some nature meditation time.
Yeah, time in nature as well. Do you still do your walks in the morning before you start your normal regime? You get out in the open, don't you? Or you did. Do you still do that now?
When I have my best days, I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to remind myself to do it every day because it makes such a big difference.
Yeah.
Wake up, walk out in the sun, see some nature, take some deep breaths, stretch. I mean, as we get older too, I think it's more and more important too, because the body, it takes a little bit longer to wake up, then the body's a little tighter.
Yeah.
Also, I think as we get older, we have a better ability to find gratitude in nature and the human experience, and so that's a nice exercise to walk out and feel grateful for just the environment or the beauty of the things around us, instead of going to the phone or something like that and getting social media, which is fine, but I think that's not the best thing to do first thing in the morning.
Yeah, for sure. On high alert already. Like, oh, what are all these comments? Now, what are
Yeah.
what are your plans at the moment? Now, we've spoken, of course, about the harem and what your view is there. With work and everything you put through your social media, obviously you've got the matrix. Like, do you have a vision for your next, say, 5 or 10 years, or are you quite open to many things at the moment?
My where I thought the end game for me was developing new pharmaceuticals and actually getting FDA approval.
Mm.
That's what it was before. But I don't know if I did that, I just feel like I'm always one step behind on innovation because that's really just for the money. The innovation is really in discovering what compounds are capable of in the first place. So, for example, the 3AD experiments, I don't know if anybody else is quite doing an experiment like this, something to actually be able to replace testosterone replacement therapy, and yet it has such wide applications. So instead of on the FDA approval side, just on the raising awareness of what chemistry is available and the miraculous, because like every molecule that's needed to help us live forever or defeat any disease, I believe they already exist. I believe we just have to figure out the dosages, the protocols, which ones are more effective than others. And so there's just so much opportunity for self-experimentation and discovery. So that like I do, but continuing to do that on a greater level with more interesting chemistry. So I see myself continuing to do that, to try to build the perfect life that I could only have through biohacking. Because if I could build the perfect life without biohacking, I feel like it's not reaching my full potential. But if I can build the perfect life that required biohacking, then that ties in all of my skills and my passion. And then I see the real world results of all the discoveries that I made with regard to the biohacking. And then as far as like money, it's not, I don't really think about making big money or anything like that because my expenses, despite having a good life, are pretty low, living in Asia. I don't have the desire to have really exotic cars and stuff like that anymore. Or, I mean, some of my wealthy friends are like, oh yeah, I want to buy a yacht that costs $10 million. And I'm just like, oh,
Oh,
I don't even want that
no.
because I've had a yacht before and it was a lot of work and stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would much rather pay a couple $1,000s one day every once in a while to rent to pay someone to do all the driving, fill the gas up, clean up the yacht after the party,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I don't need to own or possess any of these liabilities anymore. So yeah, most people, when they think of their future, they think about like what assets they want to have. And I just don't even see that other than maybe a harem compound. I mean, right now, this is like my perfect house. This is right on the ocean. This is a $3 million house. It's amazing, but it's all one house and it's not on a piece of land I could put other houses. And the women like to have their private space. So in the future, I think it would be better, and I wouldn't be able to get this on the ocean. It would cost too much and it's just not going to be available. So I'd have to get a little bit back from the ocean, 10-minute drive from the ocean, get a big piece of land, have a central house that's my house, and then have each wife have their own house around me. So, maybe I'd have like 4 houses on one piece of land.
Yeah.
And, some of the girls have their own house and some are in the main house, but everybody has enough space and they have a common area pool to
Mm.
play in. That would be the larger goal if, as far as an asset would be concerned.
Imagine if you told your 17-year-old self this is where you'd be contemplating.
I didn't know if I'd even get one girlfriend. I was such a nerd. I didn't think the only girlfriends that I had when I was younger were the ones that were extremely controlling, dominating, and possessive.
Yeah.
So to me, I thought, oh, I'm either going to be totally dominated by a girl or I'm going to be single. I didn't think I could actually like have a relationship where I was the one dominating and in control. I didn't think I could have a relationship with multiple women. So yeah, I wouldn't have believed it. I mean, it's like if I looked at my life now, it'd be like showing me aliens or something. I just couldn't even imagine. Although everything in my life is a natural progression. I mean, it makes sense. Like my goal was to get a girlfriend. Once I got one, then my goal was two. And then once I had two, my goal was three. Or my goal was to make this amount of money. And then once I had that amount of money, I made that amount of money. And whatever, anything in life, it's like I just kept doing more and more down that path. So you could see even at age 14, like what path I was on at age 14. If you just took everything that I did, like science experiments, I was into biohacking and fitness and spirituality even. And my goal was to get a girl, then and my goal was to have financial freedom, all these type of things. So I got all of those, and then I just kept pushing them further past where I couldn't see that far ahead when I was 17, right? So I got to where I could see, and then I just kept pushing each attribute farther.
Yeah. Well, I remember you said actually about your first girlfriend, didn't she say, I want you to have a six pack, and that almost started you into
Yeah.
the fitness. And she changed
Yeah, I mean,
your life.
I wonder if if that wasn't my first experience with a girl, like what if she said, I don't want a boyfriend with a six pack. I want a boyfriend that drinks alcohol and parties. Would I have gone down? I don't know. I hope, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe I wanted to do self-improvement and I needed an excuse to do self-improvement because I had a family that was into self-improvement. So maybe I just needed that extra spark. Maybe I would have been who I was anyways. I was just looking for that carrot on a stick, but I wanted to go that direction anyways. I just need the extra passion and motivation, maybe.
For
Yeah.
sure. And it might be as well that, like you said, you didn't know you could get a girlfriend and then now you have multiple girlfriends. Maybe that's contributed quite heavily to why you want to have multiple girlfriends, because from an outsider's point of view, again, back to what people might think or may view as what your life, how you lead it, there is going to be different things that people will think about it. I mean, do you ever get comments and people saying things about it in a negative light? Does that affect you, or are you quite set on what your focus is?
I enjoy hearing other people's perspective because I want to challenge my perspective constantly. The most of the negative comments, they're either like I'm oppressing or controlling the women, which absolutely not true. That's just they just don't know how to understand it because I tell the women to leave all the time. In fact, that's how I maintain the power dynamic. I literally say, "Okay, leave. There's the door," and they go, "Oh, okay, I don't want to go." Even though I'll give you money to leave, they won't leave. They would rather stay. So that keeps my power dynamic. That keeps me in charge because it's not like I'm trying to chase them. So it's the opposite of what the audience thinks as far as that. And then the audience thinks that a lot of Westerners think there's no such thing as polyamory. They think that you can't love more than one, especially a lot of American women think a woman cannot love a man who's with another woman, or a woman cannot love a woman and a man at the same time. But then I have Pow now, who she's polyamorous. She's actually in love with another man also besides me, but he doesn't come visit very much, and I don't think he may never come back to visit. But the point is, I let her love another man. Like another man is in her heart also, and so we both believe in polyamory. Not everybody believes in that. So I realized like the perspective is so different, but I also realized that like I've seen women who they want this type of situation, but they also can't handle the public scrutiny about it. So like they want to keep it private, for example, which that's a shame, right? Because why can't we all be open about what we like? Why do we have to conform to what the social norms are? I think it's better if everybody finds what things are weird about them and they're honest about it. And then other people can learn and go, oh, actually, I'm weird like that. What if everybody's weird and
Yeah.
we're all just trying to act normal because we have to? And basically, it's like censorship. It's like holding ourselves back. It's reinforcing limiting beliefs, and it's not letting us thrive. So yeah, I explore all these different, and I explore the perspective of the audience also, like saying that these type of women are only about all about money. And then I think, well, to some extent, most people are about money. And true, they are about money, but it's not really money. It's like resources to have children, to support the children. It's a biological need to just make sure you're with someone who's going to be good to have children with, type thing. So I just think the audience just doesn't understand it, and that they could benefit from the perspective, but they can't see the other perspective. But they help me see their perspective, which is helpful.
Mm.
Yeah.
And does anyone sort of put judgment towards the girls like directly via their Instagrams and things, or their people,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Constant white knights, like constantly men every day saying the men want to rescue the women from the harem. And and even like Foxy gets offered $5,000 per month. Multiple times she's been offered salary of $5,000 per month, and she doesn't take it because she doesn't care about the money. She doesn't need the money. Like, what's she going to do with the money? Buy more purses? Buy, like, what is she going to even spend? How could money possibly improve her quality of life? Because she already has a dream life, right? So men think that it's like a bidding war, that they can just bid for the girls and pay more money. And some women are like that. That's true, but that's also not the type of harem I'm trying to build. So if I lose a woman to a higher offer, then good. That means that this wasn't the optimal situation for her, and I'm happy she finds something else. Um, yes, yeah, but it's definitely constant influence and pressure, and it does affect them. The women say it doesn't affect them. I say that, if they get some idea in their head that's like a Western philosophy and they come at me with it, I'm like, you are listening to Western media. That's where you got this in your head. And I can just as easily show them an opposing perspective and allow them to rationally choose which perspective gives them higher quality of life. And in the end, they'll always agree with me, because the life I'm designing, it's not just for my benefit, and it's not just it's not that it's just like a dream, a fantasy. It's also logically constructed. Like, for example, my daughter, she needs a lot of attention. And if it was just me and the baby mama, she'd be with a babysitter all the time or whatever. But instead of a babysitter, she's with my other girlfriends. So it's like family, it's like aunts, and the girls care about her a lot. The girls beg, they all want to spend time with her. So my daughter gets huge amounts of attention. And then imagine, like, I have children with multiple of the girls, and the children are all playing with each other. They have brothers and sisters, and yeah, just the family structure just makes rational sense. So the girls see this. And if the girls again don't see it, then and they leave, then that's probably a good filter to get the girls that share my same values.
And does it ever affect you when they do sort of get people sending a message and things like that, or are you fairly okay with it, as it were?
It does. I have a real abundance, and I try to have a real abundance mindset. But when you see how many men are so thirsty coming after the girls, or like even I bring the girls anywhere, there's men hitting on them all the time, right? So when you see that, you go, ooh, like, I have to really stay competitive. Like, I can't relax, because if I do, I could lose the girls if I'm not on top of my A game. So it pushes me to push harder. It pushes me to be like a good masculine leader. It pushes me to take care of myself, pushes me to keep learning, being better. So that's probably a good thing. Because if I just sat back and relaxed on it and said, I've got these girls for life, I don't have to work at it anymore. So basically, a little bit of competition is healthy, but the toxicity of it getting in the girls' brains, and then because it's this whole simping thing too. You'll have guys like, let's say Foxy, for example. I mean, she has some serious mental problems, and we fixed a lot of it, but we still have a ways to go. But you'll get these guys worshiping her like a princess. Oh, you're right. Everything you do is so amazing. I'm like, oh my God, if these guys had any idea, if she was actually their girlfriend, she would destroy their lives. They think, oh, they want to worship her. But if a guy actually does worship her, she'll ruin their life, because her mental instability, it will be very toxic to a man's life if he doesn't know how to handle it. And clearly, if he's simping like that, he doesn't understand what he's dealing with. I think also Foxy knows that. I think Foxy realizes that when men are messaging her, they say they can offer her $5,000. They say they're going to give her a good life. They say they're going to worship her. But in the end, she knows she's crazy. She knows she's going to destroy their life. And in the end, they'll try to destroy her life, and it'll end up in a big fight.
Does it ever affect you if Foxy's having a bad time mentally? Do you find that you're quite stable around that?
I worked on keeping myself really stable around it, and then I realized that's not working. I mean, Connor Murphy and I both have different ways of dealing with things. His way was to ignore the girl whenever she's acting badly. And that's true to an extent, but then sometimes the girl will just act worse and worse and worse to get attention. So you have to really cut that behavior. It was training humans, training yourself, training a woman, training it's all training people how to behave and not behave, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Yes, so these are all the dynamics. Yeah.
It's like
I forget the question now because now I got stuck in
well,
start thinking about this stuff.
I guess it's like if it brings you down, I feel like that
Yeah, it brings
transfer.
me down.
Yeah,
It
if
brings me down, but I try to hide it. But then when I try to hide it, it gets worse. So now I have to address it like very fast. I see bad attitude. I got to jump in and say, okay, you got to go sit in the car. You got to take a walk. You need alone time. Go cry it out in the other room, whatever. Because these girls also, they all need their alone time. They all need their crying time. So I even have a room downstairs that I'm going to put a label on that says crying room. And whenever the girls feel like emotional, then they should go to the crying room. There should be some sad music. There should be some sad posters on the wall. They can let all their emotions out because I don't have time to be their counselor. And it's also better for them not to like talk negatively to other girls too much because they're going to reinforce it themselves. So really what they need, now I realize, Pal made me realize this more than any of them, that they just need time alone to cry it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes, like I always say to everyone, male and female, I'm like, if you need to cry, if something's there, let it the fuck out. Like this can really help rather than hold it in as well and have
Yeah.
that impact. Like it's still an emotion, right? If someone was laughing, you'd be like, oh, that's good. Whereas if someone's crying, it's like everyone's like, oh no, you shouldn't cry, and it's almost seen as this negative thing, but it's still an emotion. I'm like, fucking embrace that shit, right? Get it out.
And I'm doing this with my daughter now. So I want my daughter not to be completely dependent on her mother for attention because then every time she's away from her mom, she's going to throw a tantrum. So I have her sleep with one of the other girls. It's like her aunt, let's say, is what she feels like. Other girlfriend's like her aunt. But then she's crying and saying that I want to sleep with mommy, and she's crying and she's crying. And then I explained to her, I said, you crying is good because you can't always be with mommy. And it's good for you to like let it out, like don't hold it back. So let it out, cry it out, miss your mom, feel lonely for a minute, and then get centered and realize everything is okay. You're safe, you're strong. Yeah, and it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I quite like a good cry sometimes, Tony. I'm like, here it is, whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah, good. And so I used to when I see a kid cry, I'm like, "Oh, I got to protect them from crying." And now I see them crying, I'm like, "Okay, good." As long
Right.
as they're not going to hurt themselves or whatever, yeah, let them cry it out, let them feel the emotion, and then afterwards they're going to feel good.
I have to ask you as well, before we wrap up, is there anything you would change on the journey of becoming Tony Huge, the legacy of Tony Huge? If you could, if you reviewed your whole lifespan from the moment that girl told you, I want a six pack, is there anything you would go in and change, or are you happy with, well, the flow of life?
When when the harem is doing poorly and the women are all attacking me, when I'm not, because if I'm not performing well, then I don't mean just, well, sexually is part of it too, but if I'm not performing well psychologically and I'm not strong and I'm not leading them and things start to fall apart, I'm like, oh, wow, all this suffering my whole life to get to this point of more suffering. And I'm suffering four times as much as the normal guy because I've got four girls giving me drama instead of one. Then I'm like, oh, this is a disaster. But then there's these other times where everything is going so perfect and there's four girls in my bed who love me, who are worshiping me, who I'm worshiping them also. It's not a one-way street. And they're all happy together. And I'm just like, this is so epic. This is just so far beyond what I ever could have imagined. And it's so good that it's worth all the suffering. And I had to suffer to get here. And I wanted to suffer to get here because the more I suffered, because I had such horrible relationships. The more I suffered, the more grateful I can be and appreciative I can be in this moment, then it's all worth it. So the more of those moments I have when everything is perfect, the more I feel all the suffering and all the mistakes I made were for the better. So the goal is to have more perfect moments, more perfect days, and feel that every amount of suffering that I did was worth it, and then I wouldn't change anything. But of course, there are the other times when I feel like, oh, I wish. The biggest mistake I made is getting baby mama one pregnant, because that's where my life took 108. It's completely different turn, and I became Tony Huge. I sold my law firm. I moved out of the US, all these type of things. So completely different direction, and having to build a new life. And so then I always think, and I look back at my attorney friends, my friends that are still practicing attorneys, and their life is very similar to what my life was back then. And they just continued on the same path. And they all drive the nicest cars. They have the nicest houses. They have children in good schools. They have the perfect American like life. And I think that life is better than my life, when my life, I'm getting attacked by 4 women, or I can't handle the responsibility I took on. But then my life is so much better when I can handle it. So I just feel like I'm playing a really advanced game. I feel like the stakes are higher, the risks are higher, but the benefits are higher. And at this point, I want the challenge because I'm 41. So I want to see what I'm capable of. And maybe someday when maybe I'll settle and not try to keep pushing it further. But right now I want to see what I'm capable of. Yeah. And so right now I'll continue along the path of still making mistakes, still learning, and still trying to make it better, and appreciating the mistakes that I made, because they are required to get me there. But I'm sure along the way, I'll still have these times where I feel like my life would have been better if I just stayed a lawyer and kept it conservative.
Isn't it funny? Like you can have, well, we've spoken about a couple of things there for yourself, where it's like one thing can literally change your whole path. We never really know what's going to happen, do we? It's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't see that one coming. Yeah.
Wow, what an episode. The listeners are getting a treat there to understand who the man is behind Tony Huge. By the way, were you born as your surname Huge?
Charles Anthony Hughes is my
Oh,
birth name. My
oh,
lawyer name was Anthony Hughes, and my bodybuilding YouTube name was Tony Huge. Yeah.
and now you're Tony Huge.
Yeah. Although I was thinking
Oh,
I introduce myself as Tony all the time here in Asia, but I was thinking I might just start introducing myself as Anthony, which is the name I went by most of my life, and just see how that feels.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because it feels very different, even when you say Anthony to Tony.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. See how, and see, like, if people are calling me Anthony, will I act like Anthony
Yeah.
before instead of Tony? Yeah, that's what's interesting. Like a different avatar.
Yeah, a different level to the game. Or before we jumped on, I'm going to have to share it on social media. You were literally like well, it's the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, wasn't it? You had the green screen as
Yeah. How did
avatar.
we do that? That was wild. Yeah.
That's Anthony. That's Anthony.
That's the Anthony avatar. Okay. The Anthony avatar wore lawyer suits every day,
Mm.
and was very conservative. Although Anthony never said cuss words, and Tony Huge never said cuss words. So there's some element of conservatism that was maintained.
It's like you've had two different lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
two very and my it's the lawyers who knew me back then. Every once in a while, they stumble across some piece of my content or something, and they tell the other lawyers, and they're just like,
Right.
some of them, they can't even imagine. They just think like I lost my mind, or they're just like, they can't even understand, like, how does this happen? Like, they see me in court every day as a lawyer, and then all of a sudden I'm in Asia doing all this crazy stuff, living this really alternative lifestyle, and their mind is just, I don't know, just blown.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Hmm.
Well, thank you, Tony. I always enjoy speaking with you, and I'm sure we will do podcasts in the future and keep in touch.
All right. Sounds good, Sarah. Good talking to you. Yep.
You
Talk
too.
to you again
Thank
soon.
you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.